1-0.
Greetings, fellow barbarians. It is I, Alan Odinson, and this is the Barbarian Lounge Podcast. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. We're actually doing a listener-requested show today. So I know you guys think, I know some people that do podcasts and stuff like that, they'll say, oh, tell me what you want to hear, and it's just kind of a way to get people to follow you, but I'm just going to tell you guys, if you send me an idea, I will absolutely do a show on it. If it's not shitty, of course, but I'm always open to listener suggested content, and we've done several shows on it already, and I think this one's going to be a pretty good one, because I knew about this particular topic, but I didn't really go into it just because, honestly, it wasn't at the top of my radar for a couple different reasons. And some of those reasons I'll talk about today. So that's just a little bit of a little quick 1-minute intro, I guess you could say. But let's get a few things out of the way before we get started. As always, check out our website, thebarbarianlounge.com. Go there, check it out. You can follow them there. You can follow the website there also. But, of course, there's an RSS feed and everything like that. Looking to get more content on that website right now. It's kind of... I kind of burn the candle at both ends a lot of times, so sometimes I lag in certain areas while I pick up in other areas, so it kind of is what it is. But I urge you to go there, check out the donate button that we have. You can go there. There's a lot of options that you can use to actually help support the Barbarian Lounge. You can go there, you can click, there's a one-time like PayPal donation of whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want to give me $1, that's cool to help support the show. If you want to give me 20, that's even better. So, just little things you can do to say, hey, thanks for the content. Thanks for helping, thanks for helping me out with whatever. I get a lot of emails from people a lot of times. They'll send me messages. Some of them are sending me shitty messages and calling me an asshole and everything. That's cool too. If you just want to call me an asshole, that's great. Also, you certainly aren't the first person, and I guarantee you will not be the last. But I get some emails from people who have listened to some of the content, and they're like, man, you've really helped me through this and through that, and, I really appreciate those. While the funds help keep the show rolling as far as fuel, the morale of your host is kept up by the wonderful things and the wonderful feedback that you guys impart my way. And, I don't know if I say it enough. I always thank you guys, but, just simple stuff like messages from people saying, how much you enjoyed a show, or how much you like this, or how much this opened your eyes to that. Man, I'm telling you, I really enjoy that stuff too. So, you can go there. There's a one-time donate button. You can also click on some of our affiliate links there. One of those affiliates is Amazon. You can click on the Amazon affiliate. Basically, you bookmark that link. So whenever you do your Amazon shopping, we get a small percentage of anything that you buy. It's not much, but hey, every little bit helps. The other option, and the option that I suggest the most, is to become a member of our Patreon site. That's patreon.com/thebarbarianlounge. You can go there, and it's set up as a donate, but basically what you're doing is you donate an amount, a $1 minimum, of course, but you donate an amount per episode. Now, the perks you'll get from this is not only do you get all of our regular 4 episodes ahead of everybody else, usually get them a few days early. I usually upload them as soon as I finish them up. So like this episode right here, as soon as I finish this, it'll go up, and then a few days later, everyone else will get it. So you get the content early, first of all. Second of all, you get access to 4 exclusive shows that are only available on Patreon. Now, understand this. If I wanted to really boost my content in general, I could just make all of those shows public to everybody, and that would be great. It would be one of those things that would actually help my numbers go up and all this stuff like that. But I don't want to do that, because I want to give those people who are willing to have a little bit of skin in the game, that are willing to help me out. I want to offer a win-win situation for you. Meaning I want you to get something for your money other than just supporting me. So I want you guys, go there and become a member. And I do a total of 4 regular shows and 4 exclusive shows. That comes up to $8 a month. If you do $1 per show, for $8 a month, you can help support the show, help keep the lights on, keep it fueled up. A lot of the money that I'm making off of that is going right back into the content and the stuff for the show. As I've talked about before, I've ruffled a few feathers on here with some of the content that I discuss, and in response to that, I've had to up our protection levels on our websites. Just a couple weeks ago, we were getting a DDoS attack. So, you know, and stuff like that costs money, and you don't get rich off podcasting. I podcast because I enjoy it, and I got a lot of stuff I like to talk about. So if I don't talk to you guys, my wife will probably kick me out because she gets sick of listening to me talk all the damn time. When I'm yammering too much at home, she'll look at me, she'll say, "Have you shot a podcast this week?" So trust me, this podcast is helping keep my marriage together as well, because I don't think my wife would be able to handle my chattering tongue. So please go there, become a member, $8 a month. If you want to do more, that's even better. We got some people that do $2 per show. We have some people that do $3. Some people that are really down with the cause are doing like $5 a show. And let me tell you guys, I'm utterly appreciative and completely humbled by your support, and I thank you. You can also check out our sponsors, OdinsonArchery.com. Traditional bows made from non-traditional materials. If you've ever wanted to get into archery, you can check out OdinsonArchery.com and get into it without breaking the bank. A lot of people think that you have to spend all this money to become, get into the world of archery and everything. And archery can be a very expensive thing. Luckily, through Odinson Archery, we've been able to refine a process that enables us to make very affordable bows that you can do a lot of things with. If you're interested in target shooting, we got the bow for you. If you're interested in hunting, got the bow for you. If you're interested in survival, got the bow for you. All kind of gear, arrows. There's new material coming out. And let me just say this. I've said this a few times. I'm being encrypted for a reason. But if you've ever wanted to get into archery and you want to order stuff from Odinson Archery, I'm going to suggest that you do it very soon, because we've got some big things getting ready to happen in the next few months. I want to leave it at that, just because I want it to be kind of a surprise when it goes down, because I am utterly freaking stoked. It's keeping everything I got to keep it under wraps. But trust me, it's gonna be great. And I'm also hoping, do not quote me on this, I am going to be, as you guys know, I was at Blade Show last year, and I do plan on being at Blade Show again this year. That's in June, and you'll probably see me walking around. I'm gonna have bows with me, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, don't quote me. As I said, it's not like I'm not fucking busy enough. Hopefully, I will have something new that I will be debuting at Blade Show. So if you see Alan Odinson walk around there, motherfuckers, come say hi. I don't give a shit what I'm doing. Come say hi. Tell me who you are. Tell me how you know of me. And we'll hang out a little bit. I mean, we can go down there, especially if you catch me after hours. I will be down in the fucking pit, just like I was last time. So you can come find me there. Also, check out Mitacon, MitaconUSA.com. Mitacon, I'm gonna read the little thing here. Mitacon with I'm gonna do it in my let me sell shit voice, okay? Are you ready? Mitacon with proper diet supports the cell's fastest, most effective absorption of natural nutrients in each 250 milliliter bottle and sustains the body's mitochondria generation of usable energy, key to producing ATP. The energy-rich fuel and rewind a little bit. The energy-rich fuel the body needs to achieve peak athletic strength, performance, endurance, and recovery. And as always, I've got my trusty bottle of Mitacon right here with me. That's actually what I'm reading it from. And I'm telling you, man, that stuff, it's great stuff. I'm hoping to carry it in the store pretty soon. Trying to get the ins and outs worked out on it, because I want to make sure the product is available consistently for you Barbarian fans out there. So hopefully the lounge will be serving Mitacon. So If not, check it out, mitoconusa.com. Go check them out. Know the guys behind that, good dudes, and it's a very good product, and I wholeheartedly support it here. Of course, I got my glass here, so you may hear me drinking and munching on the ice as it comes out. Still kind of getting over that little flu thing that I got hit with. Never get sick, man. It's crazy. And as if you listen to my last show, I told you I think it was a witch that cursed me. Nice little old lady said, "You're gonna get the flu," and son of a bitch, within a few days I had it. So, I'm gonna get some eye of newt and some toe of frog or some shit like that, and hopefully mix that stuff together and wear it around my neck for a week, and maybe that'll keep me safe, right? All right, so enough of me being fucking crazy. So let's talk about the content of the show this week. If you guys haven't heard about, there was a gentleman by the name of Michael Strickland. So we're going to be talking about the Michael Strickland case. I'm going to give you the few ins and outs on it and give you my thoughts on it. Now, obviously, these are my thoughts from my experiences and how I interpret certain things, so take it for what it's worth. Some of you may absolutely agree with me, some of you may not, but that's great. I don't expect... It's always funny when people tell me, they're like, I like your show, but I don't agree with everything you say, and I'm like, oh, I don't expect you to agree with everything I say, right? I mean, I'm not some all-knowing deity here who's, preaching down at people or anything like that. I'm a guy with opinions. I'm a very opinionated person, and I'm not always right, and I'm willing to change my mentality on certain things as new information becomes available. However, I'm also a gentleman who has had many different experiences in the world of security, in the world of firearms, in the world of martial arts, personal protection. I've got a nice little list of things. I don't really like to talk about a lot of that shit just because I will if people ask me, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those weird like martial arts things where you want to be... You kind of want to be humble. I don't like to go out and kind of show my cards all the way. You guys know I like to play poker, and you don't want to show your hand, right? If you're playing Texas Hold'em and you get dealt a pair of aces right off the bat, yeah, you want to bet sort of big just to I guess as you would say, whip your dick out on the table. But at the same time, you don't want to go all in right there, right off the very first bet. You don't want to go all in, right? Because what's that going to do? It's going to spook everybody, and you ain't going to make shit on that pot. So, sometimes there'll be a little bit of slow rolling, different shit like that, and maybe a few little check bets on there. But, I've always been kind of humble at accomplishments of mine. But I tell people if they ask me. But with this Michael Strickland case, it was brought to my attention by a listener slash friend. I consider him somebody who I would fall into the category of a friend. We've never met, obviously. He's somebody I've met online. Good dude, though. I've done some business with him in the past. But, he asked me about the Michael Strickland case. And admittedly, I knew little bits and pieces of it. I had seen clips of the video. But, it's just kind of one of those things you have to look at with an objective mind. It's very easy a lot of times, especially when something crazy happens involving firearms, whatever you want to be, when life or death is an issue. It's easy a lot of times to react emotionally to it. And trust me, guys, I'm guilty of this as well. And it's one of the things I've had to train myself out of. Because when I see some shit that makes me really react emotionally, I'm like, motherfucker, and just get all upset about it. I have to take a step back and go, okay, I'm not going to say anything about this. I'm going to step back and see how it plays out. See what more information I can get. Look at it completely objectively. It's almost kind of like commentating a fight in a way. If you go in there and, you like the guy in the red corner, well, you like him, and so you're going to play up everything he does, and you get upset when he's doing things wrong and all this stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're a commentator. You're supposed to be unbiased. And that's the way I really have to view these things. I have to view it in the same way as a commentator. Because I don't want to get out here and put out a bunch of information and then have to go back and retract it a little bit later. So with the Michael Strickland case, we're just going to break it down here, and I'm going to try and hit it from a couple of different angles. Excuse me, guys. Like I said, still getting over the flu. Alright, so with the Michael Strickland case, who is Michael Strickland? If you don't know, he's like, who the fuck's Michael Strickland? You're talking about this guy. Hopefully by the whole time I was ranting there, you were Googling it, but if not, here we go. Michael Strickland is a conservative blogger for Progressives Today. He also runs a YouTube channel, Laughing at Liberals, I think. But, he lives in Portland, Oregon, in that area. And, Portland, Oregon, or not Portland, but Oregon in general, they have pretty decent firearms-related laws. It's just like any other place. You can run into little pockets of liberalism. Portland would definitely fall into that category. But for the most part, they don't have duty to retreat. They don't have. I'm almost sure. I'm not 100%. I did not actually look. Usually, if they have duty to retreat, usually they also have stand your ground. I'm not 100% sure on that, but either way. Because if they don't have a duty to retreat, they probably have stand your ground as well. So that's just a guess on my part. I could definitely be wrong on that. So by all means, Google it, take it for what it's worth. But he's a blogger, and he was there covering it was some sort of don't shoot rally that the Black Lives Matter were doing. They were all walking around, doing the whole hands up, don't shoot bullshit, as if that story has not been consistently and repeatedly debunked by any credible news organization out there. It's amazing how something like that will just catch fire and keep burning. And no matter how much water you throw on it, it just keeps fucking burning. There's always an ember out there that gets fired back up. So now, whenever a thug who's trying to rob a lady or just robbed a liquor store, whenever he gets shot by a cop because he pulled the gun out on the cop, everybody starts walking around going, hands up, don't shoot, like that actually holds any relevance here. But he was, this guy, Michael Strickland, he was covering a BLM rally. And, obviously he's there with a camera, and it's very apparent. If you watch the video, you can obviously find it online. But if you watch the video, you can apparently see and obviously see that he's walking around. He's got his camera on him and so on this nice little mount thing and all this stuff like that, and he's videotaping the event. Well, the video picks up at the point where he's starting to get, I don't want to say harassed. I would say that he's getting approached and yelled at. You could call it harassment if you want to. But he is actually getting fussed at by different members of the Black Lives Matter who were there. And of course, there's always your liberals guys. They always call them anarchists. I love it when they call anti-fascists and these fucking commie pricks, they call them anarchists. They are the furthest thing from what a fucking anarchist actually is. Words mean things. Words absolutely 100% mean things, and you can't call one of these little anti-fascist pukes just because he's wearing an anarchy symbol does not make him a fucking anarchist. If I put feathers up my ass, it doesn't make me a fucking chicken. Okay, so these guys are not fucking anarchists. They are Antifa communist pukes. That's what they are. That's the only title they actually are deserving of. So he's there doing his video and all that stuff, and they start approaching him. They start yelling and everything, and he's getting pretty skittish. They're starting to they're not surrounding him. They're all still in front of him, but they're getting very loud and very aggressive. So he backs up, and he pulls his handgun. He has a concealed carry permit. He pulls his handgun, Glock 26. He pulls it out when he's approached. Finger never touches the trigger, and he's got it for the most part, at a low ready. He keeps it out for X amount of time, and then he decides to reholster, and he starts backing up and leaving. Never turns his back to the crowd because he was afraid and everything. Starts turning his back and leaving. So, and that's basically how the incident itself was played out. So shortly after all this happened, he was arrested. Right there on scene, he was arrested because just so happens that one of the people in the protest was an undercover cop. So, and that's something you see at a lot of these protests. It's not a shock at all to see law enforcement amongst the people there. Undercover or whatnot. You can make arguments as to why they're there, but usually you'll see some undercover officers in a lot of these protests. If anything, just to provide communication. there. So I think that's probably more or less what was actually going on, because it was an incident. There were Black Panthers and stuff there, and who were at the event. So it's one of the things you run into. But he was arrested. He was charged with menacing and disorderly conduct. Both of those misdemeanors. He was released, I believe it was the following day. He was released on his own accord, and he was recharged, or he was charged with 2 additional charges. He was charged with 2 counts of unlawful use of a firearm. Okay? Well, the trial just recently happened. This is always something that's going to play out. The trial just recently happened, and he was found guilty on all 21 counts. Because what they did was, you had 10 people bringing this to him, so it was like, for each person was a separate charge. So it was 10 counts for one person, 10 counts, or basically it was 2 counts per person. 10 people, 2 counts per person, and then 1 charge of the unlawful use of a firearm, I think it was. But he was guilty on 21 counts. And he's not been sentenced yet. Sentencing is on the way. Now, if I'm not mistaken, now granted this is from a lot of stuff online, so I don't know exactly how the charges are going to play out. But I do know that the unlawful use of a firearm charge, those 2 counts actually are felonies, while the others are misdemeanors. Now, they're saying that he could possibly serve up to 50 years in prison. If that's the case, it's bullshit. He'd have got less time if he'd have shot somebody. Okay? I don't know if that's true, as far as how long he's supposed to spend in prison, but either way, 50 years, that's beyond excessive. So, as this trial was playing out, you saw a lot of things come to light, and you're going to find that as I'm talking about this, I'm not necessarily going to talk about my feelings on the subject, okay? Because that tends to be where you start going astray. We see it in the left a lot, and you see it in some people in the right, and I don't want to have this show be something about how I feel about the incident, or what I think may be happening. What I want to do is discuss the facts of the case. I want to discuss things that got really fucked up during the trial, just a few things that were obviously fucked up in the trial, and I also want to talk about some bad shit that he did in this situation. Now, my next statement here is probably going to ruffle a few feathers on the incident. And this is where it becomes, my opinion on this. I can give my opinion based on the evidence I've seen. Whether or not the charges themselves are excessive is beyond the point. If I'm looking at this case from a guilty versus innocent standpoint, I do believe that Michael Strickland was guilty in this case. And I know a lot of you right now, oh my God, I bet you just got triggered when you heard that. Bear with me. Just listen. So let's talk about a few things in the case that should have been non-existent, that should have been non-issues throughout this whole thing. And this is where some of the fuckery comes around that I'm absolutely not a fan of. A few of the things they used against this guy was the fact they said that he had, quote, an extra large magazine in the gun. Looks to me like he may have had, it was a Glock 26. Looks to me like he either had a 19 or a 17 mag in it. Looks to me like it was a Glock 19 mag, which is 15 rounds. It looks like that's probably what he had in there. And I'm going to tell you, as someone who's carried a Glock 26, that is absolutely a common thing to have. It's not something that is unheard of. One of the main reasons a lot of people do that is just because they get a little extra grip. But they made a big deal out of that. Oh, he had an extra long mag in there, so he must have been, ready to gun black people down, ridiculous shit like that. The other thing they made a big deal about was the fact that he was carrying extra ammo. He was carrying a bag with him, and that bag supposedly had 120 rounds. He had extra mags in there loaded with 120 rounds total. And for some reason that was supposed to make what happened in the case that much more of a bad thing, right? It's not like the guy was, I don't know if they were trying to paint him as a mass shooter or what, but however many magazines you're carrying should not add any sort of intent to the issue when, one, you did not fire around, but, two, you carrying bullets does not make you a criminal. Okay, carrying loaded magazines does not make you a criminal. But for some reason that was added as one of the guilty things, right? Another thing they made a big deal about was that he had a round in the chamber. I hope if you're listening to this show, you're not one of these fools that carries on an empty chamber. If you carry your firearm on an empty chamber, you are an idiot. You should, if you honestly think that in the heat of the fight that you are going to get that firearm out, rack around in the chamber, and get on action, I say ha ha. You're obviously someone who has probably not done any sort of actual force-on-force situations. Because that shit usually happens very close, and when that firearm comes out, a lot of times you're already behind the curve. Meaning you've already got a firearm or some sort of other weapon on you. So you want to make an extra movement to load around in the chamber? If you are not responsible enough to not shoot yourself with a fucking gun with the round already in the chamber, you should not be carrying that gun. It's like the people that, I like to carry appendix carry a lot of times. And I definitely have my reasons for that. I will carry appendix carry a good bit. And people are like, oh, aren't you afraid you're going to shoot yourself in the dick? I'm like, if I shoot myself in the dick, I have earned that round, okay? It's like they I've been told before, in a gunfight, if you shoot yourself, it still counts, okay? So, you're basically tag teaming with the bad guy if you shoot yourself. You should, pretty simple. Keep your booger hook off the bang switch till you're ready to fire a round. Plain and simple. But for some reason, because this guy had a round in the chamber, that automatically made it, that much more dangerous. I know that a lot of times the gun safety Nazis, they get really upset when you say things like I'm getting ready to say here. So if you're one of these safety Nazis, well, prepare to have your triggers pulled. But when it comes to like gun safety rules, this guy, he had I'm not even going to talk about him in general. I'm going to talk about just guns in general. I can take a gun, not put my finger on the trigger, and point it at a lot of different people. And and those people will not be in any actual danger. Is it wise to do that? No, just from a general safety standpoint. However, you can't think that just because that if my finger is not on the trigger, there's nothing in the trigger. If the trigger does not get pulled, the gun does not go bang. Obviously, there's some people are like, oh well, what about when the gun gets hot and a round fires off? Yes, that can happen, and yes, that's why we typically adhere to those rules just in case. But if you're talking about a gun that has not been fired, if you just take it, don't touch the fucking trigger and point it at a person, they will not fall over dead, okay? But for some reason, it becomes this thing of, if there's a round in the chamber, don't point at nobody. With gun safety rules, what you tend to find with the firearm safety rules, you can usually, although I wouldn't recommend it, you can get away with breaking one of those rules, usually. The problem starts happening when you start breaking two or more of those rules. That's when the problem starts happening. You'd be amazed at how many people would not have accidentally been shot just because they didn't have their fucking fingers on the trigger. It's one of the things, I've taught firearms classes before, and obviously this is something I can say in firearms classes with people, but I don't teach them anymore, so I can throw this out over the airwaves. But, if you don't put your finger on the fucking trigger, the gun won't go off. It's not like, it's not like it's going to magically go pow, they don't do that. They require somebody that actually has to operate the trigger. And, I can't tell you how many classes I've done with people, and the instructor, or even when I was the instructor, is yelling at him, keep your finger off the fucking trigger. Don't put your finger in the fucking trigger. All the time. And that's like one of the biggest things. But Michael Strickland did not have his finger in the trigger. Nobody was technically in any danger of being shot because his finger was not on the trigger. So I can throw that out there. One of the big things they used against the guy that I think is completely fucked up is they were labeling him as a white supremacist, right? He had covered several like White History Month events and stuff like that. I think he was there filming them. And I don't know his political views or his views as far as it goes for race-based politics. But at the end of the day, whether Michael Strickland is or was a racist should have nothing to do with the actual law. It's kind of like the whole idea with hate crimes, right? Should you charge somebody with a hate crime? Well, when you charge somebody with a hate crime, it's basically saying that the crime matters more. Basically, like if somebody beats somebody up and they get charged with a hate crime, what you're saying is that the crime is now worse because of the feelings they had while they were doing it. And there's been a lot of people that have discussed this in the past. I know I've listened to Master Chim did a very good breakdown of this with the whole hate crime thing that happened with the Chicago team. And I tend to agree with that. You can't add more value to the actual crime because of how the person was feeling while they were doing it. I think when you start playing this game, it opens the doors for a lot of the crazy, wacky, touchy-feely type shit that we see from the left. So whether or not Michael Strickland actually had any racial views should not hold any value or any sort of sway as to the incident at hand. Obviously, he wasn't yelling racial slurs at the people while he pulled the firearm out, but that's absolutely provable. But they were basically just going back in the past of the things he did. And this is one of the reasons why we have to be very careful about wanting to see people charged with hate crimes, even when it's against us. Because when you start doing that, you open this Pandora's box of all this strange fuckery that goes on. And it's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. So what's the best way to not get cut with a double-edged sword? Don't pick the fucking sword up to start with, right? So those were some of the things I saw in the trial that made me kind of a little weary. One of the things that was brought up to me was the fact that some of the organizers were saying, if somebody shows up and they try and cause problems, we're going to shoot them. And yes, that could add to the situation, but at the end of the day, that's just words. Should you be wary of being at the event and possibly that happening? Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't hold any sway as to how the event played out in general. So now let's talk a little bit about the incident itself and what I found wrong with it and why I think that Michael Strickland was guilty on this account. This is one of the things that comes with training, guys. It's one of the things, it's things I picked up through different classes and stuff I've done. And I will say how it played out for him is unfortunate, but it's not something that is not common. When it comes to executing lethal force, and unfortunately in the eyes of the law, I know you say, well, he didn't shoot nobody. Unfortunately in the eyes of the law, once that gun cleared the holster, he now has what I'm getting ready to tell you now, as it relates to lethal force. For you to use lethal force, typically there needs to be 3 things that are on the table at that time. Ability, opportunity, and intent. And intent can also be / jeopardy. Some people refer to it as jeopardy, some people intent, whatever, same thing. Those 3 things need to be on the table. So, if you look at the Michael Strickland case and watch the video, watch it as you would, you don't have any connection to it at all, watch it objectively. You will see these things are not apparent in this case. Michael Strickland, he gets approached by these gentlemen, and yes, they're yelling, and yes, it is a very intimidating situation. You can ask yourself, did they have the intent? Yeah, it sounded like they did. They were yelling at him, and you could definitely interpret that as an intent. But the key element here is when Michael Strickland draws his firearm, he's probably, 7-8 yards from them. There's a good bit of distance in between them. Nobody on the opposite end is armed with a weapon. They don't even have, sticks or signs or anything like that. They're just yelling. And he's got all this distance, which he should have gotten. I absolutely think he made the right call by getting this distance. However, while the intent and the obvious jeopardy, while that was there, the opportunity, once he created that distance, had now been passed, had been out of reach. They couldn't touch him. They didn't have the ability to hurt him. Well, I guess you could say they had the ability. They were, it was a mob of people, and you got a disparity of force there. They obviously could have the ability to do that if they so chose, but the opportunity was not there. There was too much space in between them. He was not hit a single time. He wasn't slapped. He didn't have anything thrown at him. Nothing. He was just at this distance, and he drew his firearm to keep everybody back. That was where his problem came in. It's a training flaw. A lot of people think that, the key to protecting yourself is, I'm going to get a concealed carry permit. People have to understand that you go with the old, was it the Spider-Man analogy or the Spider-Man saying, with great power comes great responsibility. It's the same thing with the concealed carry permit. You just don't get a concealed carry permit and all of a sudden you're like, ha, now I am all powerful and everyone shall bow to me. That's not the way it goes. There are laws that you have to adhere to. And unfortunately, and I don't think in a general sense that Michael Strickland did anything wrong, but from a law sense, he fucked up. And it's unfortunate that he's going down this road. Those guys did not have the opportunity. And you could even argue the ability at the time. You could argue that. But they did not have the opportunity to do that. Those three things were not present. One of the things that the judge actually got him on was the fact that he did not deem the crowd to be a threat. Unfortunately, just because they're yelling and they sound very, very aggressive, that does not automatically mean that you can pull your firearm out. Because this is the thing. Remember what I said? There's three things, ability, opportunity, intent, right? Look at Michael Strickland. So he backed up, say, seven yards from them. He drew his firearm. Does he have the intent? Absolutely. He's got a gun in his hand. You can, and of course, obviously he may not have intended to shoot people, but when you pull a gun out, guess what? That's automatically falls under the intent category. Does he have the ability? Yes, he has a gun. Does he have the opportunity? Bullets can travel easily seven yards. Okay, so he absolutely has the opportunity. He could shoot them. So those three things were available at that time. So Michael Strickland reacted with deadly force to an incident that did not warrant deadly force. Yes, he didn't shoot nobody. No, his finger was not on the trigger. It does not matter in the eyes of the law, especially when you look at the way a lot of these prosecutors are, especially in ultra-liberal areas like in Portland, Oregon. Man, they're looking for an excuse to sell you up the fucking river to make an example out of you. And it's unfortunate. And I know a lot of people hearing this and they're probably getting pissed off. But hey, I'm not attacking this from any sort of emotion on the situation. I'm not talking about it from the aspect of how I feel about it. I'm talking about what it is. There was no opportunity for him to be hurt at that moment. He had plenty of distance. Now, if he was standing face to face with them and they grabbed him by the shirt and slapped him and started punching him and threw him on the ground and started kicking him, then the game changes. But that did not happen. Basically, what you had was Michael Strickland was afraid. He was scared, and it's an absolutely common response for a lot of people. He became scared. From my understanding, Strickland had actually been attacked before at a protest. I could be wrong, maybe a year prior. But Strickland was scared. He was afraid. And, he was afraid for his life. But still, he still missed that one little thing that hurt him. And it was the thing that got him sent up the river. It is. Just because you're afraid does not automatically warrant that you can pull a firearm out. Unfortunately. It's one of those cases that I know it hurts a lot of people's feelings to hear that, but it is what it is, guys. So if you're not triggered enough, one of the things that we can definitely get from this is we can learn from the mistakes that Michael Strickland made and apply them to ourselves. This is the whole reason. I already knew what I was going to say on this before I even really started researching it. I knew what I was going to say on this, and I wanted this to not be something that I intentionally am trying to trigger people and all this other bullshit. I know a lot of people think that's fun to, oh, I'm going to make people mad. That's not my intent. My intent behind this was to educate you, as I'm hoping that you're a firearm carrier yourself, to educate you on things you can do and common mistakes that were made here in this situation. And I'm going to preempt this particular part of the show by saying this. You guys, if you've listened to my show when I talked about taking the fight at Tactical Response, you've heard some of my thoughts on this. Some of the scenarios, I would love to, let me just preempt this by saying I would love to get James Yeager on the show. I saw him at Blade Show last time. Maybe I can do like a quick interview with him at Blade Show. We'll see how it plays out. Fingers crossed. I'm going to need a mobile mic, which actually happens to be on the Amazon wish list that is on the donate button page. So just throw that out there. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. If you want to support the show, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. That's one. I'd love to do a podcast on the road from fucking Blade Show. That'd be great. But in the fight, it was designed to give you a Rolodex of scenarios. Maybe not the exact same scenarios you run into, but there were a lot of common elements that are statistically proven as issues you're probably going to run into. One of them, I'm not even going to say one of them, several of them actually, put you in situations very similar to what Michael Strickland went through. Absolute fucking chaos around you. People bumping into you, pushing into you. You turn around, there's a camera in your face that looks like a gun in low light. All these different things. And under situations like that is where you learn. One, you learn what kind of stress fucking cops go through. But the other thing you learn is when it's time to get that gun out and when it's not. Michael Strickland had never had the ability to do any training like this, or he chose not to. Therefore, he found himself in a situation he was not ready for and thought, if I pull my gun out and I'm not pointing at nobody, there's no problem. But he didn't understand the issues that come with that. That come with letting that gun leave the holster. So let's talk about some lessons from this. The first one, obviously, is I have a gun should not be your go-to personal protection / defensive option. That is a bad call. I cannot, maybe it's my background, martial arts, whatever. I cannot stand when I ask somebody if they've ever had any, you ever done any martial arts? Oh, no, I carry a gun. Ugh. There's nothing that irks me more than that. Having a gun is not some magical self-defense self-defense item that you put on you, and it creates this force field around you that protects you from all demons that shall try to penetrate your defenses. That's not what a gun is. A gun's a tool. And just in the same way as you need to be trained to use certain tools, I would say you need to have training in the tool that you carry with you to protect your life. It's a tool. And a lot of people just get this whole idea of, I have a gun, I am now protected. Well, you've upped your odds significantly, but it does not make you invulnerable. Case in point, Wild Bill Hickok. When Wild Bill Hickok was killed, when he was shot, I think it was James McCall was the fucking coward that shot him. Wild Bill Hickok died with 3 guns on him. Was one of the most deadly pistoliers in the West. And he died from a Derringer shot to the back of the head. Had 3 guns on him. Absolutely outgunned the fucking coward McCall. But guess what? He still died. Okay? Chris Kyle. One of the most dangerous snipers in history. He died. He was armed as well. So a gun does not automatically make you impervious to danger, for one. For two, you need to have other options of protecting yourself. Again, I go right back to taking the fight. In a lot of those scenarios, there were some scenarios where other people had to get their firearm out. And right or wrong call, it's questionable. But for me, because I had some empty hand skills, I was able to use my stand-up skills and not punching people, but actually using stand-up grappling, simple things like arm drags and snap downs and slide bys. I was able to use those to get around things, to get away from the danger. Okay? And You know, it doesn't need to be your go-to move. It's not like, oh, when I see danger, I pull my gun. No, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of things that come into effect with you pulling that gun out. Michael Strickland was not aware of this. And you need to understand that when the time comes for you to pull that gun out, you need to have your shit in order. Because there's 3 fights. 3 fights you've got to win once that gun comes out. You got to win the gunfight. If you win that, that's probably the easiest fight you'll have. Then the hardest fight is the second one, the legal fight. And if you pull that fucking gun out in public like that, especially when it's on video, guess what? That legal fight is going to be the most dangerous portion of the whole thing. And then, of course, if you engage in an actual gunfight, the psychological fight is afterwards. Different people handle that differently. But the legal fight is definitely the most dangerous. Michael Strickland was not aware of this. Okay? There was a lot of mistakes he made along the way. When he was backing up, stress or not, he needed to be asking himself some questions. Or maybe, as I've said before on this show numerous times, you need to ask yourself those questions before the fight comes to you. You need to already have these scenarios played out. He should have asked himself, what if I get approached by these people? Well, how should I handle this? But no, I've got a gun, so that's it. If they come to me, I'm just going to pull it out, and that's that. That's not the way it goes, guys. This isn't like TV, all right? And that takes us to number 2. Know your laws. I cannot tell you how many people. I used to teach the South Carolina concealed carry permit class. I cannot tell you how many people have come to me and talked about the shitty training they have received from some of these CCW instructors. Instructors basically just teaching them the test. Doing just enough for them to get an A on the test, right? Just enough to pass, get a passing score. I'm of the opinion that on the South Carolina concealed carry permit or any concealed carry permit class, you should have to receive a 100 on that test in order to get the permit. If not, your instructor isn't doing his job well. When I taught my classes, I never taught the test, but I never had people miss a single fucking question. Not one. Because we covered it. We covered all this stuff. When people left my class, they left with more than just, let me get you through the test so you can fingerprint and go get your permit. Okay? My class was usually about 12 hours, even though it didn't need to be that long. A lot of guys are doing it in 4. But my class was always longer because it was my responsibility as the instructor to have these people leave that class with an understanding of the responsibility they have. And it's a big deal. I don't want, if any of the people I've ever trained, if any of them ever have to use that gun, I want them to win the legal fight. Okay? My goal as that instructor is to make sure you win the legal fight. I can't help you with the gunfight. I can't help you with the psychological fight. I can bring some things to your attention, but at the end of the day, as an instructor, your goal is to make sure they win that legal fight. And there's a lot of people who've gotten their permits that are not ready for that legal fight. Michael Strickland, unfortunately, was not aware of all of the aspects as it related to deadly force, as it related to what constituted getting that pistol out, what the consequences were of doing such. And it's just one of those things where, like I said, man, some of these fucking liberal prosecutors are just sitting around waiting to make an example out of you. The third one, call 911 first. If there's a call to be made to 911, you need to be the first person they hear from. If you are the firearm carrier and have had to pull your pistol out for whatever reason, you need to be the first 911 call. Plain and simple. I don't care if you even had to fire a shot. You need to be the first fucking 911 call because there are plenty of other people who will do it for you. And you want to be the first story. Because when it comes down to actually questioning, everything you say can and will be used against you. Those calls are being recorded. You need to know what to say, how to say it, and those little things right there are one of the most valuable skills you'll ever pick up. And it's one of the things that I picked up from the fight that is the thing that I took away the most. No one ever teaches you how to talk to 911, what you should say, to keep yourself safe and to help you through the legal fight. Michael Strickland, as I saw in the video, never called 911. Okay? He never made that call. But you know who did? Those 10 people that were getting the gun pointed at them. There were a lot of people making 911 calls. Okay? So, you always want to be the first. When it comes to the actual legal fight itself, you're going to find that if you're the first person that calls in, well, now every other story after you is going to be contradictory to what you said. Okay, so at least you got the first word in. All right? Honestly, if you do 911 call correctly, you shouldn't be saying a whole hell of a lot. So I'll leave it at that. Number 4. Seems pretty obvious, but I should say it anyway. Get training. I know you think because you can shoot a bullseye that you are trained. I've been shooting my whole life. I've heard that so many times, right? Tell somebody, you should get some training, man. Oh, I've been shooting since I was a kid. Okay, that's not training. All right? You may know a few things, but I've also been shooting since I was a kid. Competed in IPSC, IDPA. I did it when I was younger. I've done all sorts of shooting things. I've won 3 gun competitions, and I learned a hell of a lot from my class at Tactical Response. I've learned a hell of a lot from classes I've taken at Paladin Training here locally. So, trust me when I say, if you have not been someplace to get good professional training, you are not trained. I'm sorry if that hurts your sense of ego, and I know a lot of men like to think that they already are born with swords in their hand and helmets on their head, but you need to be trained. You need to have proper training, because even, you know what, a $500 class, if you just learn how to talk to 911 and that's the only thing you take away from it, that's a valuable piece of equipment. That's a valuable thing to add to your arsenal. But people don't want to. Oh man, it's expensive. It's $500 for a class. Save up. You know, you'll buy a $500 gun, but you won't take a $500 class. If you have more guns than you've taken training classes, there's a big fucking problem. Okay? I urge you, get trained. Seek extra training. Taking your CCW class is not enough. It is not. I'm telling you, as someone who's an NRA pistol instructor, someone who has taught the CCW class, someone who has taught personal protection, I've worked with law enforcement and everything, and I'm telling you right now, your CCW class is not enough. And I know it's horrible to have to go and actually feel like that you have to go get training, but guess what? That's the reason you do it. That's the reason I took the hardest fucking class that Tactical Response had to offer. It's the reason I took it. They'll tell you, it's the class that least people take. And the reason I took it was because I needed to see where the holes in my game were, and I left it a changed man. The last thing, and this goes right with what I was just talking about. Stuff your fucking ego. That's one of the main reasons a lot of people don't like to get training, is because they want to believe that what they're doing is correct. It's definitely the reason a lot of people don't take the fight. Let me tell you something. They'll take if you walk in there with an ego thinking you're a fucking badass, I guarantee you 2-3 scenarios in, you will change your outlook on yourself. But a lot of people don't like to put themselves in a vulnerable state like that. But, it's kind of like the old thing of getting your ass kicked in sparring so you don't actually get fucked up in the ring. Well, when we're talking aspects of life and death, trust me, you want to lose many fights in the training hall before you actually step into the arena of death. You know, just taking that class, man, I've got a Rolodex of things that I play through and I say this, I'm not saying this to kiss in the ass. I say this that I replay scenarios like that in my head, and I see them every fucking day. Aspects of them that I think about. But you have to stuff your ego. It's like what I was talking about. I don't remember if I did this. Things start running together. I don't remember if it was on the regular show or on the members only show that I talked about this, but I talked about the importance of stuffing your ego to make a tactical retreat. Oh, we don't run away from fights. Well, that's not very wise when a tactical retreat is necessary. Okay? If you're in a situation where it's getting pretty hot and heavy, and your options are, do I pull my gun or can I get away? Even if you don't have a duty to retreat, guess what? You better fucking get away. Because at the end of the day, did you get shot? No. Did anybody else get shot? No. Did you have to pull your gun? No. Sounds like a pretty good fucking day. Because you're going to get to go home, you're going to sit down, have a beer, watch some football on TV, hang out with your wife, kiss your kids goodnight. Okay? But a lot of people just get in this whole ego thing. Oh, I'm gonna stand there and I'm gonna fight everybody. You're fucking up. Okay? You don't need that. You need to be wise. If you end up going to jail because of something stupid, you're not doing your people any good. You're not doing your tribe any good. You're not doing your family any good. You're not doing your brothers any good. You need to go into these things not having some kind of ego that thinks you're gonna go in there and be a fucking world beater. Alright? You fight to get home. That's the goal at the end of the day. It's not about some male hierarchical, I can't hardly say that word, some male hierarchy thing where you're some kind of display of plumage or anything like that. That's not what we're doing here. We're not fucking peacocks. The goal is to do what needs to be done so I can go home today. If you do what needs to be done and you don't get to go home, you fucked up. And you need to be willing to tell yourself that you fucked up. If you have the opportunity to get away and not have to pull a gun, you need to get the fuck away. Fuck your ego. Fuck it. I get sick of this whole macho mentality of oh, I'm gonna stand there and I'm gonna fight everybody and we don't run. Bull fucking shit. You're making a mistake. And I tell you this because I don't want you to fall into the same category that Michael Strickland ran into. He had ample opportunity to back the fuck up. He had ample opportunity to get away. But he said, I've got a gun, so I can pull it out and I'll create this barrier around me and no one can come into it. Yeah, but guess what? You just committed an act of lethal force. Even though nobody was shot. It's the same thing I tell people. I think I've told it on here before with jiu-jitsu guys. I talk to them about, choking somebody, right? Rear naked choke. I say, are you aware that you're committing an act of lethal force? They're like, what are you talking about? I've choked a guy out. I've been choked out. You go to sleep, you wake back up, right? If you haven't been choked out, that's an interesting experience. So, think about it. Ability. Well, you're choking somebody. They could, if you keep it on, it is a blood choke. They could die. So, do you have the ability? Yeah. You're choking them. Do you have the opportunity? Well, I got them, right? I got their back, got the hook sunk in, got the rear naked, got it locked up, and they are going limp. Do you have intent? Well, yeah. Are they in jeopardy? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They're being choked. They don't know what's going to happen. One, when they pass out, they don't know that. They may choke you out and take your gun and kill you. You don't know that. They may stomp your head in. You don't know. Or they may have a blood clot in their neck, and all of a sudden the blood clot comes loose when you're choking them, and then it goes to their brain. You don't know that. Those three things are absolutely available. Same thing, another thing with lethal force, right? Serious bodily injury or harm. We hear that a lot. Serious bodily injury or harm. Well, if you put an arm bar on somebody, is that serious bodily injury or harm or death? Yeah. Serious bodily injury, absolutely. So, am I authorized to use lethal force? Well, looks like it. Ability there? Yeah. Opportunity? Yeah. Intent? Mm-hmm. So, you have to be very wise in how you do things. It's the same as I talked to people about, when I used to work as a doorman. I say, if you ever have to rough somebody up, if you ever have to hit somebody, I want you to attach yourself to them. Whether it's grabbing them by the collar or the hair or whatever. And they're like, okay, well, why? It's not to make your punch better. It's actually to control their descent. So if you do hit them, and I'm hoping that if you have to punch them, you hit them very, very well and you knock them out with the first one. The goal is I don't want them bouncing their fucking head off the ground. I want to control their fall. Make sense? So little things you prepare yourself for. And yes, that's something I picked up through training. But you need to have this, you need to go ahead and get rid of this idea of just, I've got to fight everybody. Every fight is a fight to be had. The goal at the end of the day is to go home to your family. If you win the fight, you might win the actual fight itself. Legal fight? Well, legal fight, that's the most dangerous. If you don't go home, you lost. Okay? So I'm going to wrap it up, guys. This is last call.